Hi, my name is Karina Akida. I'm the managing editor of Canadian Auto Dealer, and I'm here with Derek May from Hub International Insurance Brokers. So October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and while we're still in October, I would like to ask Derek what the cybersecurity situation is in the automotive retail industry. So, what is the situation around cyber attacks? Do you have any examples you want to share? So, let us know what dealers should know.
Yeah, a good question. I wouldn't say that dealers are much different than just the general population. We're seeing a lot of the same claims with dealers that we see with our other clients. And the major one that we're seeing is ransomware. And so typically what this means is that, a company is getting infiltrated and then a bad actor, we call them, is launching what's called ransomware, which basically encrypts all of the data within that dealership, basically making them not able to work, not able to function. And typically they're asking for higher and higher demands, which is sort of the scary thing that we've seen. No longer are they asking for $10,000, but what we're now seeing is that they're asking for several $100,000 or even into the millions. And so it's making cyber insurance that much more important because you can rely on that policy to pay for that ransom. If you're allowed to, of course, because there's a lot of restrictions in place as well with the government and things as to when you can pay and when you cannot pay. But to really thwart that, we try to work with our dealers to implement good backups and other key risk management strategies to not let those incidents happen. Outside of ransomware, we're also seeing a lot of what we would call business email compromise. And this is where employees within the dealerships are accidentally getting phished for their usernames and passwords, granting access to these bad actors into the system. And then they could do a whole host of different things. They could add different types of malware. They could steal sensitive information. They could even try to get what we call a social engineering attack, which is where they would pretend to be, say, the CEO within the organization or the president of the organization and try to get one of their people in the finance department to wire money to the wrong people. We just saw this only a few days ago, which is quite scary because it can be a very quick way to monetize for these hacking groups to go after some of these employees and try to get them to send that money voluntarily out of the organization. So those are some of the key things that we're seeing in the dealership world.
Now, some dealers may not think that it will happen to them. I mean, maybe it's happening to a lot of other companies, and you addressed that in the beginning of your answer. Are there enough situations in the automotive retail industry that you believe dealers should be concerned?
For sure. We're seeing a large increase in cyber attacks, both with dealers and in, again, the general population. I'll give you a quick stat. It's a pretty scary one. But at points in 2020 in Canada, we saw the cyber loss ratio hit 500%. And this means that for every dollar that the insurance companies were collecting in premium, they were paying out about $5 in claim costs. And so it doesn't take a business major to figure out that that's a bad way to run a business. And so as a result, they've had to dramatically change the way that they're underwriting cyber policies. And so I'm sure what our dealer clients have seen over the last year is that now there's a much more requirements in place by the insurers to become insured. So they're asking for key things like multi-factor authentication across the organization. They're looking for robust backups that are not only there and are done on a daily basis or a weekly basis, but they're tested regularly. And we're also seeing them wanting to implement employee training across the organization and have incident response plans. So there's a lot more, say, barriers to entry to getting a policy these days or to renew a policy. And certainly premiums have gone up. And again, all of this is as a direct result of the number of claims that we've seen. And so no longer can we kind of sweep this topic under the rug. The claim stats are there. We know that people are getting hit, and it really could be one of the biggest risk areas for dealerships moving forward.
So that brings us back to cyber insurance, and you did give us a few reasons why dealers should consider it, but are there a lot of them using cyber insurance? Is it something that's popular? And for the dealers that aren't, what should they know about it? Or are there any more details you can share?
Yeah, so there are a number of different programs across Canada that do offer cyber insurance, sort of contained within that group policy. And certainly, us at Hub have something similar. Now, the one trend that I have seen is that a lot of dealerships tend to steer on the lower limit side of things. So when they're considering whether to buy cyber insurance or not, if they do end up buying a policy, typically they're staying with a quite a low limit. And that may have been appropriate a number of years ago. So say a 250 or a 500,000 limit. But now with the dramatic rise in costs, especially again, due to ransomware, the hackers aren't asking again for $10,000 anymore. They're asking for a few $100,000 or again into the millions, as I mentioned before. So if you're only buying a $250,000 policy, those claims that we have had seen for ransomware are often going right through the limit of insurance that that client holds, which means that they're paying out of pocket for any excess, which is a little bit scary. So we're trying to guide our clientele and dealerships, across Canada in particular, in buying appropriate limits. And we typically work with them on some benchmarking exercises to determine what an appropriate limit means for them.
Okay, so that is scary stuff. And I guess my last question for you would be, what other comments or advice can you share with dealers based on all this information?
Yeah, the biggest thing is to be proactive. I think, again, starting January 1st of this year, we've seen a dramatic shift in how underwriters are reviewing this risk, and they're mandating certain policies and procedures, as I mentioned before. And so if we leave it to the very last minute to try to comply with some of these things, we're going to put ourselves in a really unfortunate position where the insurance companies might just throw up their hands and say, sorry, we're not going to offer you a renewal. We're not going to offer you, terms moving forward. So working with your broker well ahead of renewal, if you want to put a policy in place for the first time, giving yourself some room to do so is the best advice I can provide. And also making sure that we're including all parties at the table. So we should be speaking with your IT people, risk management people, insurance people. Everybody should be at that same table because again, this topic is not just between the risk manager and the insurance broker anymore. We need to, loop in IT. We need to loop in any external IT people that you're using as well, because these policies are quite broad. The applications are asking for a lot of information, and it's very likely that all these people need to be at the table to answer. And that's going to allow us to get the policy and hopefully keep the cost down.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Derek, so much for taking the time to do this interview. And I wish you all the best considering the pandemic situation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.